In today's video, I'm going to show you how to bake my simple sorghum sourdough bread recipe. This is a two-part video series, and in the first part, we go over how to feed a sourdough starter, how to mill some seeds into fine flour. We go over the first part, or the first step of this bread recipe, and then in part two, I show you how to incorporate the sourdough starter with the salt, and one of these loaves has a secret ingredient. And the reason I did two is that we're also comparing which one yields the best crumb texture and flavor. So we will be able to compare. So keep watching and I'll show you how to get the loaf ready for baking. So this bowl has been in the refrigerator overnight. All the ingredients except the starter and the salt, and another secret ingredient, which I will show you in a moment, of sea salt, a good quality sea salt. Just quickly show you. So they're just basically beets in a salty brine with some pickling seasoning. That's all it is. But the juice in here is very potent, and I've been playing around with adding some to my breads, so it's very red, but don't worry, when it gets mixed in, it blends with the rest of the ingredients. This step is optional though. It's just like giving it a boost, basically. That's all it's doing. And then we're gonna put the 1 cup of starter. And now for the next step, we're gonna use our hands. Using a spoon. I haven't tried using a mixer, but I find just our hands is seems to be the best thing. So the dough itself is gonna be a little bit stiff because it's been in the refrigerator. Although I did take it out a few hours ago, so it would be more room temperature, but you can use a spoon if you want, but I just find getting in there with your hands just helps to combine the ingredients really well. And once it is all mixed in, then I'm going to transfer it to, in my case, I don't have a banneton or a shaping basket. I just use a soup bowl with a dishcloth. So in this case, because I've added the 1 tablespoon of fermented beet juice, it does smell a little like pickles. But that smell or that flavor I find tends to disappear a little bit after the dough has risen and then you bake the bread. So it kind of looked like it wasn't going to be moist enough, but it's fine. The hydration level is actually perfect. And I find, I don't know, doing it this way, I can already tell that the texture of the dough is really, really nice. It's like more elastic, if you will, like it's already holding together really nicely. And I think if you were to skip the overnight step of the first part of the ingredients, the texture is actually slightly different, which it's hard to explain, but you can kind of like mix it and knead it a little bit in the bowl. But see, it doesn't break apart. So already the ingredients are like binding really well together. So imagine, this doesn't even have gluten, and it just has a really nice feel. And then once you feel that the ingredients are like holding together nicely and everything is well mixed, this is just where I'm gonna take this ball of dough . It's really nice. There's something about this texture compared to a lot of the other ones, or the other bread recipes that I make. It's just really nice, really different. And there's no rice in this recipe. There's no gums. There's no commercial yeast. This is the size of soup bowl that I use. I'm gonna just line it with a clean dish towel, and that's kind of it. I'm just gonna take this. Does it matter if you go seam up or down? I don't think so. It'll just do its thing anyways. So I'm gonna use 2 hands. I'm gonna transfer it to here, and The last few times I've made this recipe, I cover it and then I put it in a large Ziploc bag. So this is it. We're gonna let it sit somewhere warm in your house, in your kitchen, doesn't matter where. Minimum, I would say 4 hours. It works really well if you leave it longer, 6. Am I gonna get to go to 8 hours today? I'm not sure. It's almost 7. I would like to bake it before I pick up my kids at school. So this is kind of how I do it. In general, I time it so I can shape it in the morning really early, let it rise for a few hours during the day. If I can't bake it before I pick them up for school, I bake it after, usually giving me about an 6 to 8 hour rise. So I will mix bowl number 2, and then the second one I will not put the beet juice in it just to see if there's an actual difference. But stay tuned. I'll show you the baking process this afternoon. Thank you. All right, so we're gonna start with this one, which is the loaf the dough that was refrigerated overnight. And it's the dough that does have a little bit of fermented beet juice. So this dough now has been rising for just a little over 6 hours, so 6.5 hours, and you can tell it's not doubled in size, but it's much larger than it was when I put it in. Once you start this process, you have to move fast enough because you don't want your bread to go too flat. So if you do it fairly quick and put it in the hot oven, it usually works really well. So I have been preheating the oven for probably over an hour because I was already baking something ahead of time, and I'm also preheating a baking stone and 2 Dutch ovens on top of the baking stone. Well, we're gonna go ahead and flip this sorghum flour. Try to rub it in. I'm adding seeds on top, but you do not have to do that. By adding a little bit of olive oil, I'm hoping that my seeds are going to stick to it a little bit better. You do not have to do this step. I'm just doing it in order for it to stick a little bit better. So I'm just going to go ahead and add a line of poppy seeds. This is just purely for decoration. You do not have to do this. It will be nice though. And then I'm going to take a sharp blade. If you have a scoring blade, even better, but I am just going to do a cut on an angle with just a few decorative lines right here. See, this is a very hot pot. I'm going to transfer it to the pot. We're going to cover it and stick it in the oven. We start with 25 minutes covered, 25 minutes uncovered, and then about 8 to 10 minutes directly on the baking stone or the oven rack. This is the loaf that I did not add beet juice. And this dough, the first part of the process, I actually left my dough on the counter, and it actually looks really good. When you add the flour, it looks really nice. When you bake it, it adds like a rustic touch to it. Because I'm putting a line of olive oil, it just helps to get for the seeds to stick. You do not have to do this step. I'm again just doing it because it does look pretty. Do not consume sesame seeds if you have an allergy. If you do not, that's fine. You can use hemp seeds, sunflower seeds, pumpkin seeds. You can use nuts if you're not allergic to nuts, but this is just a decorative detail for my loaf. And I am just going to do the same 4 lines as I did on the other one. Place this in the oven. And I will cover it and bake it for 25 minutes covered, 25 minutes uncovered, and 8 to 10 minutes directly on the rack or the baking stone. And I'll show you what that looks like as soon as it's ready. All right, my friends, this is by far the best part about baking bread at home, is when you finally take it out of the oven and you get to see how it turned out. And in this case, I am beyond thrilled because these are beautiful loaves.
They're gorgeous, and I cannot wait to cut inside to see what the crumb looks like. Just note that when you do bake a gluten-free loaf like this one, let it cool for 4 to 6 hours, if not overnight, before slicing into them, as it could get sticky and gummy if it's not completely cool. So if you do try this recipe, or if you have any questions before you start, please let me know in the comments, and or go directly to the recipe post and let me know there. So I hope you try it, and then when you do, let me know what you think. So thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.